Welcome to the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, Tuesday the 20th of February. And we'll start with item 672. Does anybody have any declarations of any disclosable pecuniary interests? None. Apologies for absence, Karen.
Been received from councillors Anne Whitehorn and Stuart Terry.
He certainly emailed me. I think he emailed Alan as well, but Mac McDonald sent his apologies as well. I don't know who else he emailed, but he definitely emailed me. He's
Doug Jefferson emailed me. Sorry, Doug Jefferson emailed me, say he wasn't certain as to whether he could make the meeting.
Noted. 674 minutes from our meeting held on the 23rd of January. They've been received by full council. Are you all happy that they are a correct and accurate record? Yes?
Yeah.
I will duly sign them. Thank you. Contracts update 675 to note the attached schedule of contracts. This is a new agenda item that will become a standing item, and I'll let Alan explain why it's there.
In essence, any purchase above £7,500, we have to track and we have to explain how we actually did the procurement. So you'll see on this particular one, we've had 3 procurements. I should have actually picked this up a lot earlier. And the Guildhall scaffolding, and basically it just said what process, who did we award the contract to, for how long, and what was the process for doing that. And in all 3 instances, we've actually used provisions of our standing orders and financial regulations because of the urgency and other circumstances that we have. This is part of the transparency code, so we have to make sure that this is on our website at least annually, and it will always be part of the finance committee going forward, just so that that information is accountability and transparency over our procurement activities. All this has gone through these. The minute reference on the very first column is the full council meeting where these procurements were actually tabled, and it was agreed that we would actually procure these goods and services.
Thank you. Any questions on the contracts update? So it'll be on there each month. You'll see if there's been any contracts added to the list. A lot of these ones obviously have been through full council, so everyone's aware anyway. But the idea is we capture them as a finance and personnel committee, note the process and where the money's coming from and who's been awarded that particular contract. David.
The top item, the Guildhall scaffolding, we've got a cost. It's also weekly after so many weeks. Could we have that detailed, what it actually costs us? When are the 10 weeks up?
10 weeks, all right. We've started paying.
So it's yeah, but from when?
I think we paid. I think we started sometime in January, mid-January, and there's certainly be another invoice in February.
Yeah, if that's possible, I would like to know what that would actually cost us. Reasons of why, but what it's cost would be lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. I think I don't know if it'd be an improvement, Alan. I don't like to create too much work for you, but I would certainly like a column that tells us where the money's coming from to pay for that item. Whether it's reserve or whether it's in the revenue budget, but tracking where it's coming from, I think is quite important.
Yeah. This is the minimum requirements. Anything we add on, we still meet the minimum requirements. So
thank you.
Let's do that.
Everyone happy? Yeah. So it will evolve over time, I'm sure, but please keep an eye on it. And having been here a while, it's quite small at the moment, the contracts list. They used to have all sorts of things on it, so it's much smaller than it has been in the past, but that's because we haven't been given so many contracts. 676, approval of payments to receive and approve the listings of payments made since the last meeting. They are all in your packs. Anything to add, Alan? Good. Any questions on the list of payments that are there? All fairly routine. Thank you as ever to Chris Harvey for being one of the main authorisers of payments. If there's any we don't like, Chris, we'll blame you. 677 personnel report, to receive and discuss the personnel report for the months of December and January. Anything to add to the report, Alan?
There's nothing. In terms of training, I think we've made some significant strides in terms of training. Through Councillor Jeremy, I was able to make contact with Simon Wood. He actually came to the last planning meeting. He's agreed to do 2 in-person training sessions with us. One of them will be where he will take us through the concept of planning, and the second training exercise will be where he'll do an analysis of where we've had decisions of variance, where we've either supported something and Brecon Council have rejected it, or where we've opposed, been an objector, and Brecon Council have done it. And I think that would actually be quite a useful session for councillors and certainly for officers who know even less about planning.
Thank you.
What were you looking at me?
I'll look at myself.
Any questions on training? No. And the second part of the personnel report talks about the advertising for the new positions. Really pleased to see those vacancies go live. Could you just confirm where and how we've advertised? And I've seen that we put them on our social media, but it's important we get a decent number of applicants and some quality applicants. So is that the sum total of the advertising, or is there more to it?
No, I think it goes into Indeed, goes into our social media, and I think that's it. But I know it does go into Indeed.
Okay.
Is it on the Town Council website? If not, why not?
There is an issue there.
Okay.
Okay.
We have to do a separate meeting on the Town Council website.
Fair enough. Okay.
Can I suggest we certainly contact the job centre? I only know that because something else I'm involved in, that somebody who works at the job centre is there, and they're always keen to receive direct information, and they will headhunt people for us.
Excellent.
Terry.
Any benefit from putting those in what we used to term trade journals? Are there such a thing anymore?
We've tried that on we've tried that on specialist positions like a countryside officer and things like that, where we've got up to their things. It's really, really expensive, and
Yes, a surprise.
and I don't think we the last time we did it, it cost us a couple of £100, and I'm not sure we couldn't measure what response we got.
Yeah, just small.
Okay. Is everybody happy to note the personnel report then, please?
Yep.
Be noted, thank you. 678, logging and reporting of complaints. To note any complaints received since the previous meeting, if any.
None so far.
Everyone's happy, you say. 679, financial report for the 10 months ended 31st of January. Anything to add, Alan, to... Well, I think we'll take them both together, to be honest with you, because they're interlinked. We're so near to the end of the financial year. We've got 10 months, end of January, and also the operational budget forecast.
I think in terms of where we're sitting at the moment, it is encouraging. We do have a surplus. Bear in mind that we typically incur some of our big expenses, like for example, the participatory budget will happen in March, or we'll set aside money for that. And there's some quite big open space costs that we think will come through. So we provided for that. So they will come through in February, March, or probably March now. But overall, we will have a surplus. I'm very confident of that. And the latest forecast is that we'll have about a £9,000 to £10,000 surplus. I'm hoping for it to be a lot bigger, but we haven't really used some of that surplus in the year.
What's an open space cost?
An open space cost is, for example, we had a backlog in terms of our work on Barnard Cross Common. So we're actually having to do a little bit of catch up there. And the second one is on Castle Mound. We're having to do flaling, we having to use mechanical cutting. The idea was that we'd actually use grazing to keep that growth down, but we're having to use other things. We had to cut Ford Meadows, another example, mechanically instead of having it grazed.
Okay, are we any nearer towards having that grazed?
I think if you wanted to see a grown man cry, if I asked Nick Thompson to come to this meeting, he would have done it. We have grazers online. We have someone to do the mechanical cutting online. One thing to start tomorrow. Historic England haven't given us the go ahead. Like I say, Nick I think he's gone up the line, he's gone down the line, he's gone sideways. He's waiting for that, and we cannot start without them giving us. We've got the legal consent, the Secretary of State's consent, but we don't have the actual.
It would be wonderful if you could have that circulated. But I didn't know about it. You might have done, but I'm sure that there'll be other people who'd be interested in knowing the obstacles you face.
I think at the next amenities meeting, which is where this gets reported to.
That's great.
I think you will see a grown man cry. I think he's so frustrated.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
There is a press release due to go out tomorrow, announcing the details of the new grazier and why we're grazing.
It would be nice to have had that before reading it in the press.
All councillors get sent press releases at the same time they're issued to the press.
Or do they?
As per the council's media policy.
Thank you.
That you voted for, as long as along with everybody else.
Yeah, chastised. Thank you.
So that's positive news.
Yeah.
We've accounted for the 25k unlocking Thetford's potential. We've accounted for 19k for health and safety.
We've also budgeted some additional costs that, since we blasted the forecast, some of those costs have come in, and we've actually budgeted for that. So the forecast, I think, is fairly robust. But
Good.
Up on it, no, but let's see.
Doug, so
Potentially some putting question, but we end the year with end the financial year with 10,000 roughly surplus. Where does that go in terms of the budget for next year?
What it would do is it would typically go back into reserve. So we have a reserve called surplus that's accumulated over the year. So if we had a loss, for example, to say if something happened, like when COVID happened, we ended up with a 30 to 40,000 pound loss. We funded that loss from that accumulation of previous year surpluses.
That makes sense, thanks.
it's likely that I'll table a proposal at the March finance meeting on what to do with any underspend. I have some suggestions.
Nothing.
Well, I'm happy to share it now. One of our biggest risks as a council is the implementation of the budget, particularly around the Guildhall and Carnegie and the transfer to a charitable trust. So I think any underspend that we've got needs to be to sort of put towards that to sort of help with implementation and help mitigate that risk. That would be my suggestion. That's the biggest risk of the new, in my mind, the budget that we've just adopted. That's the biggest risk element.
And there's going to be significant costs and
A lot of assumptions there.
getting out of here, moving along to Guildford.
No, most of that's all factored in.
Is it really?
Quite well, actually. Yeah, I'm not worried about that at all.
I think we should buy some scaffolding personally.
Yeah, lucrative business.
Seems that way.
Any other questions on financial update or budget? No, as ever, Alan and finance team. Thank you very much for processing all of that information and giving us very up-to-date reports, which enables us to plan and make decisions. And very grateful for that. Linked to this, we have a separate projects budget. We haven't reviewed it as a committee for a long while, so Alan and I were quite keen to table that tonight. It's a bit complicated, so we're going to do it in a couple of stages over a number of months. But do you want to sort of kick off the conversation, as it were?
What we did last year is well, if I could just go back 2 or 3 years ago, what was happening is we were doing a total budget in November of each year. We were estimating when these projects would take place. Inevitably, they didn't take place. They were not budgeted in the following year. So we just ended up with this huge mismatch of projects happening from one year to the next. So what we've done is 2 years ago, we delinked it. We said the project's budget, because it's not funded from preset, it's funded from our reserves and grants, and if we took out a loan, we delinked it from the operational budget. So the operational budget and the budget that we've just been reviewing, that they are funded from precept and other operational income. This budget is funded, like I say, from grants, it's funded from our reserves, and it's funded from any other source. So, for example, you'll see that on the, well, it's very difficult to see on the screen behind me, but for example, we've got the master plan, which is primarily funded by the lottery fund. So that sits there. There would be grant funding for that. So as we record that, we'd actually expense that, and we'd record income against that. The fish pass was another one. The Department of Environmental Affairs funded 56,000, I think, of that total cost of 72,000. So this just shows all the projects that we've incurred to date, and that's in the yellow column. And there's quite a substantial number. It's £375,934, which we funded some of the Guildhall money. We funded it from the Heritage Master Plan, the environmental affairs in terms of the fish pass. So our core spending is about 200,000. So that's the kind of first part of it. The second part of it is that this all has to be funded from reserves. So what we've been doing is our reserves sit at about £1 million. We budget to put, this year, in the last 2 years, we budgeted to put just under £100,000 into our reserves. So we are actually taking money out of effectively using our reserves to finance these projects, because we're not using precept. We're only contributing £100,000 from precept into the reserves, and then we're spending quite high levels of money. So when we table this budget formally, we actually put a reserve statement, and every year, going way back from probably about 2014, we've always had this high expenditure eroding our reserves, but we never actually end up doing it. And it's because we just can't do the projects that we set out to do. If you look at, for example, the Guildhall project, we budgeted £55,000 to fix the 2 towers. We know we're close to that. We funded £55,000 on the scaffolding. As much as we've asked, incurring a lot of expenditure, we know we're near that. So a lot of the projects that we budget don't just materialize, because we have to be very conservative. We have to be prudent. We have to, just worst case scenario. And our implementation capacity is actually quite limited. So that's the second side of it. We budget for these things. We identify the reserves. If we don't incur the expenditure, we don't spend the money from the reserves. I don't know, Terry, if that's made any sense.
Alan and I have been talking a little bit about this, and I think the danger we've got is that we've got a revenue budget, we've got a projects budget, and we've got a reserves budget. And some of the projects budget is actually reserves. Mm-hmm. So when I first looked at the papers, I thought, great, we've got a load more money other than what we've got in reserves, because it's separate in the projects budget. And that's not the case. It's one and the same thing. So I think we need to, first of all, look at the list of projects and work out, does this new council want to carry on with that list of projects and everything that's on there? Bearing in mind, some of them have been delivered, but we actually might want to assess, do we still want to do this? And then secondly, we need to work out how we are going to fund them, and if indeed we are funding them from reserves. I think there's also some new projects that need to be added to the list, and then separately worked out how we're going to fund them. So a couple of different processes, I think, basically. Would it help, Alan, if we sort of went through, because I think we've got a bit of time this evening, if we went through the list of projects and we can mark off ones that have been completed, and then we can have a conversation about, do we want to do away with them?
Very brief question. What can we do better? And you'll come into it, no doubt. What can we do better as a council to get things implemented? If we've decided we want them doing, what can we do better? Why haven't they been implemented?
I think one of the things that we're learning, and I think, I'm sure as councillors you've been very extremely frustrated, is that first of all, we don't get expertise to help us do things. We try to do them in-house, and that really comes at a significant cost. I think also we're just overambitious. I'll give an example, and this came out of the Communities Committee. Eventually, we got permission from and confirmed funding from the Department of Environmental Affairs in January. They put a deadline on us to have it done by March. we knew it was not possible to do that. You know, that year there'd been heavy rains, they were delayed and going on site. They finished it in July. So there's also that element that sometimes they don't happen in this year because they carry over for 1 or 2 or 3 years. This morning, one of my to-do lists, I had a project that we did 2 years ago. The funders are saying, you know, it's only for £2,475. Please submit the information, and we'll give you, you know, your funding. That's 2 years ago, you know. And it's just that's the type of thing. It's time-wise in getting approvals. It's time-wise in mobilising contractors. And I think the one thing, and I've raised it, and I apologise for raising it again, is that we actually have to get in professional project managers to help us manage our projects. We are hopeless, you know, to expect us, you know, I mean, I'll take a simple thing like a website, you know, we can do content, but we can't manage that. We honestly can't. We actually need someone who can go to the back office, can listen to someone and say, that's not right. This is, you know, this is right. You know, everything else. We've done some things okay, but, you know, like the heating and in the Guildhall, I think that project will go okay. But it's because we've actually come up with the concept. We know exactly what we want, and we were able to manage it. But I think there is just a lack of project management capacity that is our biggest stumbling block.
Would this come back to an issue of sort of briefing from councillors, from officers?
I
in
think
terms of procurement? I
think it's just this expectation that, you know, if I'm an accountant, I should be able to write accounting software type thing. I think there's an expectation gap between our own skills and that of what we can do. You know, someone who's good at website content is not necessarily good at running a back office of a website. Someone that's a good contractor is not necessarily a good project manager. I mean, when we did the Guildhall, the first part of it, we actually had a contractor and a project manager. And that project went okay, you know. I mean, there were some problems with it, but it went a hell of a lot better than the scaffolding has gone, where we've had nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for.
So sort of know your limits, really, I guess.
We do, and it's just there's always this whole thing of, oh, it's going to cost us money. Well, it costs us far more money by not doing it. Again, excuse me, Chair, just told me to shut up. You know, as part of the fish pass, we were supposed to have a water transfer license done immediately.
Sure.
We try to do it in-house. I have spent more time. I've had to pick that up. I only got submitted about 2 weeks ago, and the port. I shouldn't say too bad, but I think they took sympathy on me and actually helped, you know, kind of drip fed me all the processes. I didn't understand half the stuff, you know, and I think that's really so. If we just gone to someone like a professional, someone who's involved in that, and there are people, and said, please do our water transfer license, I'm sure it would have been done within weeks.
In effect, if next time we're looking at the cost of a project, we build into that cost the project management sum,
Yeah.
and then just hand it out and let them get on with it.
That would be my advice.
Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
I think historically, councillors are very good at saying what we want.
Yeah.
They're less good at saying how are we going to get there.
Yeah.
And we've had so many project ideas in the last 5 years, I'd say, particularly around 2015, 2016, a huge list of aspirations, and money was set aside for a lot of them, but there's no capacity to deliver any of them.
So
That's the
we
challenge.
need to change that and get things done.
Well, we do a lot, but we don't do any of it well.
Great.
I'd rather do less and do it well.
Yeah.
I think this is a lesson to be learned for councillors as much as it is officers, I guess, isn't it? You know, we've got to be realistic about what we're asking and the, in inverted commas, real price of what that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan.
No, thank you for the question. Okay, you happy to take us through the list?
So, can you all see it? I can make it slightly bigger.
Yes, please.
If you like. That's better. Just starting off with the Guildhall project, HLF, that project's finished. We had the reason why there's a difference is because some of the costs were operational. They weren't project related. They were actually, we did some events. We incurred that as a cost, and we got money for that. The Guildhall 2 towers, that's an ongoing project. That's the cost of the scaffolding. That's all the design costs. That's all the expertise. And I mean, we've had quite recently up to 8 people from all various, you know, different structural engineers have come in and etc. And those costs are there. Hopefully, you know, and again, I have to commend my town team manager. I mean, the amount of effort he's put in. We finally managed to get the contractors on site who are doing the final costing. So we're hoping to present a figure today, but we can't do that. The Guildhall heating, that project is new. But that we budgeted 50,000 because we were going to put in these elaborate systems. We're just putting in a new boiler that comes out at about 17. I think it's 19,000, somewhere around there. The shambles is finished. We didn't budget much. This is the shambles 2, which was left in a mess, so we had to go in and tidy that up. The green projects, we were going to apply to the Public Works Loan Board for a project to put solar panels on the roof of the Carnegie. That just hasn't gone anywhere. We don't have the capacity to do that. We've done part of that project, which is make sure that the roof is watertight and it's got proper insulation on it, etc. But we haven't actually got around to doing the solar panel part of it.
Can I suggest that we remove that one for the time being?
Yeah.
Because it's unfeasible.
Well,
We have to
we
go
don't
through
even
a
have the
whole-
money for it. I mean, the only way it's going to be funded if it's funded by a loan that we haven't even got. So, it just seems illogical at the moment.
The play park renewals 80,000. I think we've incurred that cost. I put 56,984. I think there's some cost possibly sitting in the amenities normal expenditure budget that would qualify for as a project.
Will that increase the underspend for the year if you move those across?
I am aware of that, but if these are major costs, we had a big project at Castle Park, and I'm not too sure that all those costs have come through, or they've come through drips and drabs, and we've only identified some of the costs as being associated with that.
So is that play parks in, sorry.
No, it's okay, go on.
Is that play parks in general or one?
Play Park in general, we had to do a lot of ROSPA come and do an inspection, and we do a lot of capital work, repairs and renewals of our play parks.
Thank you.
There was a tender for that 2 years ago, I think it was, and that's where we started. But the companies we're using are really, really expensive, so we're still shopping around, even against the tendered one. The Royal British Legion is nothing; it's just a little overflow from the project that was budgeted in the previous year. The upgrading of the Carnegie is just it's a capital expense. I just have to. I can't recall the details of that. The King's House, the 4,000, that wasn't for moving out of this particular building, so that was just there in case there was something that needed to be done here in respect of the council. So that's unlikely to be spent.
Can I suggest we remove that one as well?
Yeah. St. Peter's Church, we budget a significant amount every year because it's proven to do so. This year we've only incurred £8,500. We normally provide about £50,000 in our projects budget. Hopefully 6 weeks to go. I think it will happen before the 31st March. The chapel workshop.
Sorry, can I just go back?
Yeah.
Can we remove that one as well?
Yeah.
I think we've budgeted additional money for property repairs, and St. Peter's is one of our properties. We're going to have to put some of our own money into it to take the building forward, but that'll be linked to the Heritage Master Plan stuff. But for now, we don't need a specific project heading for that one.
On the other one, the 8227, the chapel workshop toilet, I think that's the one that we were going to put also toilets near the chapel, and that project hasn't taken off. So I don't think that that's going to happen either. Or if it is going to happen, there's a lot more work to happen, or a lot more planning for it before that can actually take place. It's certainly not going to happen before the 31st of March this year.
Wasn't there some money put to one side for that one? We had £35,000.
We have put money into the reserve. There's money being put into the cemetery reserve for that particular reason. This is actually to say this is the actual project that we're going to use that reserve to do. We're unlikely to do that.
It's a very specific amount, isn't it? 8,860.
I think it was the leftover of a lot of quotes we got at the time.
So we can remove that one at the time.
Remove that one. The purchase of glebe clothes, we didn't budget for that, but that's a cost we've incurred to date. I'm not sure whether there's any more costs to come through. The Norfolk County Council Parish Partnerships, we've got them in 2 places, and I have to say it's only recently that I've got a little bit of clarity as to which partnership they relate to. But we have paid out 3 amounts on the parish partnerships. I just might need to just go back and relook at that again. I think it is further down the listing. I hope it is. No, it's not. But that's what we paid out £10,000 this year. That's our express. The fish pass was budgeted last year, so that cost has been incurred, and that was mostly funded by the Department of Environmental Affairs. The sculpture trail, we are having a meeting on the 6th of March to discuss that further, because that money's been set aside there for years and years. We take it to a kind of very limited degree, and then it stops. We have bought one statue, which is by the 2,700, but there's a little bit more work to do. So that I think we have a commitment from BFER and Brecton Council have contributed towards that. So that one will have to stay. And it's gone up to 3,000. The SAMs, that's 7,156. I have a feeling that some of those costs are recoverable from Norfolk County Council. I must investigate that. Last year we set aside on the Thomas Payne plinth, we set aside 12,500 to get the plinth outside restored. That hasn't happened. I think the costs were a lot greater than what we had budgeted.
So do we have to add more money to that and get it?
We'd have to, if we were going to do it, we'd have to add more money to the budget.
Right.
12,000 or 12,500 doesn't get you very much money.
Could we get, sorry,
Yes.
should we be getting quotes for that and making people aware that is what it's going to cost us? Because it needs to be done. We don't want it falling down, or the plinth, the stuff falling off the front.
Yeah. There were some quotes obtained, but I can't remember for the life of me what the cost was and how long ago it was, but it's something that we can explore.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll put it on the next agenda item.
You know, sorry, from my point of view, that's right outside the building. That's what we've got our photographs outside of. I don't want that looking a shambles or falling down during our first year in office.
On that subject, am I right in thinking that the gilt on the statue was done by an American group, Thomas Payne International or something?
No, there was a society. There was two donations and the council put in money. I can't remember. The chap that runs a program on Radio 4 after the Radio Today. He says it's a society he runs. I think Thetford Society, and there's another society that actually put money towards that, and the council put some money towards that.
The Thomas Payne Independence will probably contribute as well.
Next one.
The tree guards ex Norfolk County Council, that's a very good grant that we've received, so we've incurred the costs, and I think there's a lot of email correspondence regarding that. We're getting the school kids to plant those trees. The water connection on Barnum Cross Common was, this is again, I have to give patience to the town team manager, because if you thought the amount of time and effort to get water on both sides of the road for our graziers, this was approved about 2 years ago. I think and it finally has happened. The new computers and technology is just new computers that we bought this year. The council chamber table is the last leaf. We had an extra leaf put on at the end there for the expanded number of councillors. The fire risk assessment, the new office chair is 2,399. We had to replace all the office chairs at the Carnegie, so that's what that cost. The conferencing sound system got approved and it's been purchased and is in our possession. It's just going to be tested. Election costs, 2,970. That's a cost that we get charged by Brecton Council. It's a little bit lower than we budgeted because we were given a figure of 25,000 by them to budget. And because there was only one election, or one of the wards, there was no election, that came down. The marketplace improvements, this is some project money that we got from Brecton Council. I think it's the last bit of funding for that. And I think there is still something to be funded. I just have to double check. I think there's 7,500 of notice boards or something that's sitting in our reserves. The Bury Road allotment roadway, we budgeted £10,000 for our allotments. We only spent 2,400 on fixing the access road to there. The master plan, we budgeted £10,000 because that was our contribution as a town council. And so far we've incurred £116,000. 589 in this financial year. We've also incurred money in the previous financial year. And that's where we sit. And then, sorry, the absent decision making, we budgeted money for that, but that's just gone on hold at the moment.
Okay. So with all of those changes, you're going to go through it and take out any that we don't need or finished and come to the end of their life. And then add a column as to where the amount budgeted is coming from.
Okay.
And in most cases here, it will be reserves, but a couple of them are grants. Any other comments or questions on anything on that list?
Just to quickly, if you see this on paper, I mean, that explanation for which thank you deals with the issue I'm going to say, but it isn't always possible to tell whether it's pending or beginning or finished. I know that you can kind of work it out to some extent in some cases, but I think it might be helpful if we at least indicated which of them are completed.
Okay.
Or pending.
Yeah.
Green, yellow and red, isn't it?
I will take it comes aboard. So the difference between what's in progress and what's still going to be done, what's in progress and what's completed.
Well, even better.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So we're required to receive and discuss a first draft of the project's budget for the year ending 31st of March. Decision required to review the project's budget and the funding thereof. Is there anything?
No, this is the item above that. This is the.
Oh yeah, sorry. Is there anything else, Alan, that you need from us to update this one at this point?
No, I think it's just a matter of noting that we will come back as part of the year end and we'll actually put all the projects expenditure, all the funding from reserves, and we'll ask for that to be formally approved by this committee.
Yeah. Cool. We'll move on to 682 then, which is the first draft of the project's budget for this coming financial year. What other bits have we got on this one? There'll be some new bits, I assume.
There's a lot. I've just put a commentary rather than you look at numbers. I've just put a commentary. We budgeted £20,000 for the sculpture trail. That's what we've spent to date on the one statue that we've bought. We've budgeted play park renewal. We've kept that £40,000 going because we actually need to renew our play parks. And this is just an officer suggestion. Obviously, the council will have to go through and do that. Restoring the King's House Council Chamber has been budgeted 5,000. We went and got an indicative quote. They said it could cost as little as £800 and possibly a little bit more. So I've really been prudent and put in 5,000 costs. We've also got to move all the stuff from here to the Carnegie, except the stuff that will stay in the strong room downstairs. So the estimated costs of 5,000 of that. We've set aside £10,000 for the renewal of IT equipment. And the reason is as we go employing more and more staff, we actually need IT equipment for them to actually use. And I'm not too sure whether we have what we're going to do with IT going forward, whether we're going to stay in house and do that. I've budgeted property maintenance of £10,000 for the Guildhall. And my reason for doing that is because we may have to restore some of the damage that's been done through the damp and etc. And that will probably happen in the spring. I've been really, you might think I've got the comma in the wrong place, but our fire risk assessments work is significant. So I budgeted £75,000 for that. We budgeted a marketplace sound system as 15,000, but I am aware that we could actually possibly rent systems, and it might be more. If you leave a sound system out in the marketplace 365 days a year, the chances are you're going to be affected. Whereas if you rented one, so a feasibility study would have to be done. We have made application for a parish partnership of £25,000, budgeted for that, and redevelopment of Ramsey Close allotment site. We budgeted that at £10,000, bearing in mind that some costs have already been incurred, will be incurred in the 2023-24 year. We haven't budgeted anything for the Guildhall two towers, because hopefully, we might not have to incur anything. Just the smaller tower might need a little bit of strengthening, and we can remove everything and wait and get a grant-funded project out of that. And that's it. So that's really what we put forward.
When the scaffolding comes down internally, in the Guildhall, there's going to be some significant damage. There's a lot of mess in there, holes in the walls. Are we going to try and get some costs for budgeting to improve that room?
I've put that as the Guildhall property maintenance, specifically for the Guildhall itself.
Not much money in there for property maintenance, all those holes that are in there where the scaffolding's been. I mean, there's holes all over the place. And we're going to need scaffolding for the people that go in and decorate, internal scaffolding, because they're such high scale ceilings. It'll be a significant cost.
Yes, but we don't know what.
So would it be worthwhile exploring?
Yeah.
We don't want to leave it for a year.
No.
To get it, like get people in and get it a cost.
I think the purpose of this document was really just to say this is an officer's perspective, and we understand that we're not the decision makers. This will go to all committees. It will miss the Heritage and Town Events Committee, so that they might just meet tomorrow night at their particular meeting. All the other committees, and it will miss an allotments committee meeting because that's scheduled in April. But otherwise, it'll go to amenities, it'll go to venues and markets, and it'll come back to finance. So there is an opportunity. This is just the first draft. Next month, we would actually finalise it.
Okay. So just working that through, what are you hoping the feedback from the committees will be? Say, for example, it goes to venues and communications, and David's point about 10 grand not being enough. You're hoping the committee would say
this is it, and there might be something else that they would require that could be revenue generating or preventative maintenance. Because I think one of the other things we haven't done is we haven't spent enough money on preventative maintenance, so we're always firefighting. So that would be one of the things that we do. Amenities, you might have some amenity projects that you might undertake, and same thing. We'd hope that would be identified there.
When the scaffolding is down, it might be worthwhile then for some people to have a walk round the internals to see what damage has been caused. So you get a much better idea when you come back with a huge sum of what it's going to entail to put it right. People will have seen it, so they'll understand why it's so expected to put it right.
Transparency.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
okay. And just thinking about capacity, and bearing in mind what we've said earlier about actually needing the capacity to implement these different projects. This list here, and then there was quite a list that hadn't been completed on the previous one. Those two things combined still feel like actually an awful lot of stuff
for a small team.
I think, for example, in the sculpture trail, we're not going to try and run it. At the moment, you have the parts of the events team trying to run it. You have parts of the town team trying to run it. We're not going to do it that way. So I think what we talked about the delivery is we have a meeting on the 6th of March where we plan out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. We will then have to say who's going to take responsibility. It can't just fall internally onto the existing staff. Otherwise, we'll be talking, the same thing in 12 months. The play parks we outsource a lot, so that will be relatively easy. The IT we've outsourced. All we have to do is just identify what our wants are. So I think I'm fairly happy that we can cope with this far better than we have on some of our previous projects because we didn't have the project management capacity.
You mentioned the Heritage Master Plan, or that got mentioned in that. Would it be worthwhile, like knocking that on the head for a year and getting other things done, and then coming back to it with a bit of meaning?
As far as I know, the deadline to deliver the Heritage Master Plan was December.
It's got extended. They had a problem at Heritage Lorry Fund. So my understanding is that it actually gets finalised in March next month. I know we put through costs, but that's as far as
we haven't got a Scooby of what we want.
Yeah.
At all.
We had one meeting.
We've had am I misreading? There's no budget for next year, though, is there? So we're not planning on.
No, that's just budget. We haven't budgeted anything for the Heritage Master Plan.
So even though it's extended to March, that was the same initial cost.
Yeah.
And at some point, we'll need to be having a conversation as a council about the contingency that was built into the grant that hasn't been used and what we want to spend it on.
If there is a contingency, this is
my understanding is there's quite a big contingency built in that hasn't been tapped into, and we need to decide if we ever give that back to the lottery or spend that.
But the
I'm
moment,
hoping to get an end of project presentation. This is what we've done. This is where we're at. So we as a council can take stock and decide what we want to do next. None of us have a clue.
no, it's that. It is that. So to keep talking about it, I'd rather just sort of put it to one side, get all of the things we've said we'd like to do, including that list there,
Mm.
and move with that, and then come back to it with some ideas on what the hell we want.
Taking on board your point about professional expertise, who is project managing the Heritage Master Plan on our behalf at the moment?
Katie, right?
Okay.
She's taken over all the grant managed
Okay.
projects.
And I know you're meeting with Katie, Doug, aren't you? Which I was copied into.
Yeah, I think I was going to meet her this week.
Yeah.
Discuss about it, try and get a sense of where the next steps are.
But is that mainly Heritage Lottery Fund, Guildhall and events and activities, or is that Heritage Master Plan?
It's mainly the former, but I expect it will touch on the latter. Part of what I'm hoping to talk about.
Okay. So at some point we need to take stock of that.
Yeah, because the Heritage Master Plan is a number of buildings, but no one has any idea of what they want in any of the buildings.
If we're serious about the Heritage Master Plan, it should feature heavily in our project budget moving forward.
Yes.
And the fact that it's not there is a huge hole.
Yeah, and it's like, it needs discussing at every meeting we have. And almost like a team of people need to sit together and focus on it.
Okay. But I do think we need to let the current situation run its course and, you know, allow them to finish what they've set out to do before we then decide what we do next. Anything else on projects?
I think it's a fantastic list. And if we get through that, I'd be amazed. Brilliant.
So the recommendation is that this goes to committees for discussion and then comes back to,
It's not the forecast.
yeah, March. Cool. Everybody happy with that? You happy with that?
Yes, thank you.
Right, two main items left then. 683 progress report on HR performance consultancy. Where are we at with that particular project?
I've had a series of meetings with them. We had a workshop in this room last Monday. I've given them huge amounts of information. They are going away and they hope to. This is consultant speak with the paper that I put out here. This really is consultant speak. There's errors and flows and different colours, etc. But they are actually in the stage of doing their own interrogation of that data. They will come back and meet some of the key staff members to get their views on it, and then they're hoping to put through some draft recommendations at the March meeting. We will have a very similar to what we did with the investment committee. We'll have a pre-meeting so that they could actually have an honest and robust discussion with this committee before the finance personnel committee starts then.
Sorry, with which committee?
Finance and personnel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think they're just working through so much data. The amount of data we've given them is huge, and there's still more to do, and there's still more consultation.
And
As you think it's, sorry.
I just say, and in terms of what to expect, presumably there'll be a list of recommendations for changes and improvements.
Yeah.
David.
That's it, sorry. How do you get us going and what recommendations are they likely to make? Yeah, thank you.
Well, the intention is to use the same consultancies to support us with town clerk recruitment. And I've had a number of councillors ask me how that's progressing because we're conscious of capacity. If they're here in March, presumably we can talk to them about shaping that moving forward. Yep. Cool. Any questions on HR performance? Are you sort of generally happy the sort of advice and support that you've been getting from them?
Yeah, I think at the moment, they're getting more information from me than giving me back information, and I'm just looking forward to the engagement with the staff. You know, the key thing that I'm doing is I said to all the staff, I would honest, you know, feedback, because otherwise it doesn't really work. You know, so I really put that I know some of the, and I've sensitized the consultants to some of the key issues that we have in the organisation. So they'll be able to test. And I said, look, you know, I spoke to such and such, and they didn't mention that, you know, and that will be my test to see how honest the staff would be. But the staff really do need to be honest and constructive in terms of what they say back.
Okay, happy to note. Cool. Moving on, 684, further update on the feasibility study on relocating from King's House. We've reviewed this in January as a sort of interim update, and there's been awful lot of work done to progress things, and take us through where we're at.
I think at the last meeting where I tabled this item, we had made the comment that it was really the cost of restoring these buildings and getting everything right that would be the big determinant. We had someone come in last week to give us indicative quotes, and those costs are not significant. So regardless of all the other work that we're still going to do, there's a little bit of work in terms of moving and removals. There is no ways that the feasibility is going to say we should stay in this particular building to save money. It's just not. It's not. That argument is never going to arise. So we're fairly confident. There is a big settlement to have. The charity owe us money, and we owe the charity money. But I think that will come out in the wash. There's rental agreements, etc. We can't take it any further until there's a board meeting of the standing force. We have to find out what the rent's going to be for the strong room, what they want to do with this room. Do they want us, you know, what do we do with this table, for example? This is one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves. Do we take it to the Carnegie? We've really got tables in some of our rooms there. So there's some of those final discussions, but they're not deal breakers. They're not, this is going to stop or prohibit you from moving out of this particular building. So I think we've got to that stage there. We've still got final numbers and everything else to do. But in principle, I would be gobsmacked if there was something that came up that said it would be prohibitive to move, or we'd never get the savings back from vacation from this building.
At what point do we therefore change our in principle decision to relocate to an absolute decision?
I think you would have to have a board meeting with Standing Force. I think that is part of the process, because again, this is where the conflict of interest is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Standing Force charity have to put their viewpoint. They have to go away and decide what they're going to do and how they're going to approach it. Because we don't have a lease agreement. There is no lease, so we have to just resolve. Come up with, this is historically one would say, what is our terms of business be? What is the notice period? I have no idea. But I can't see
zero because there's no lease.
Yeah, I can't see those things again. They're just things to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
On the conflict of interest front, before we were trustees of the Standing Force, we had it in our manifesto we were going to move. So it is a decision that we made pre any conflict of interest arising. My view, obviously, there's other people with a different, with a few as well, but that was something we said we were going to do.
I mean, I work with the Standing Force clerk very well, and I say to her, my job is to look after the interests of the council. Yeah. Your job is to look after the interests of the charity. I don't expect you to look after our interests, and I don't expect me to look after your interests. And we are very much aware of that, but those discussions still have to happen. And I'll be sitting advising the corporate trustee, and she will be advising the board members, and that's really
the issue of the conflict of interest. As I say, when we came with that decision, there wasn't a conflict of interest. There is now, but we had already made that decision to get away from here to save money.
The clock is a very sharp on her government, so she will put her forward, and that's a healthy situation. That's what we wanted.
That's good.
Yeah. And I'm slightly nervous that we made an in principle decision at the September full council. Yeah. We're now in February, Stanleyforth board doesn't now meet till the middle of March, and we're supposed to be out of it by the 1st of April. And I desperately don't want to incur rent from the 1st of April onwards. I don't want to be unfair to Stanleyforth Trust. We need to give them time to market the building. We know we are moving out. I think we need to change that in principle decision to we are and issue formal notice. I think we should be, you know, with due respect to Alan, I know we've got a lot of capacity issues, but we've got to make progress on this. We're going.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
I propose that, if you do that.
Sorry, Alan.
My job is to support the council. That's what I try to do. You know, and give advice. You know.
So your recommendation, David, to full council is to formally serve notice that we are moving out from the 1st of April.
Yeah, but in a way that we are giving notice, but there is no lease agreement, whatever. We're just telling them we're going as soon as practical.
Can I just clarify, is the sticking point that we're waiting to see if there's an offer we can't refuse? Or there is not going to be an offer that we can't refuse?
No.
Right.
No, right, conflict of interest here. I'm on the Stanleyforth board. No.
This is just the happy relationship, and it's a matter of finding the compromise. These are all parties.
Do you need anything else from us, either from this committee or from full council, to enact that decision? You know, I want us to start moving stuff out. Do we need to be doing anything to agree to that, or if that's adopted at full council, that's the trigger to start doing stuff?
I think that would be the trigger, but I also think what we might want to do is, if we can't move out exactly on the 1st we can have all our meetings there at the Carnegie. There might be a little bit of delay in moving out.
We're going to be charged.
If we have to still get this room sorted out, if they discover big problems behind the walls, etc., we're not going to be able to return it. But at least the principle of what we want to do of moving the meetings there, and then we could maybe suggest a monthly rental for 1 or 2 months. I'll find the money. But practically that, and that's again what, you know, it's just the difficulty that we have.
Okay.
I'm not sure what's stopping us. I mean, this stuff can be moved already. There's nothing stopping us moving the paraphernalia, is there? Memorabilia, sorry. And the sooner we get on with it, the better, really, because it means that when we officially move on the 1st of April, we move into the place as it is, as it should be.
And there's a disappointment and the lack of movement on this issue, I think, is what I would say. Understanding all the challenges we've been through. But shall I suggest that we take David's recommendation, because he's proposed it, get the approval from full council first, and then review at our next meeting in March progress on implementation of that recommendation?
This is one of the issues where we might just get someone in to actually project manage it for us and get it done.
Yeah.
If we try to do it, we will be here next year. We really do have that challenge.
And you're taking capacity away from presumably the town team, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It's high time, if nothing else, we start cataloguing some of the memorabilia and twinning type items that we've.
Memorabilia, David.
Did you say junk?
I didn't. It's fine.
Right. David's made a proposal. Would somebody like to second it? Chris Harvey, all in favour? Approved. Thank you very much. Right. Where are we at? 684. 685. Any correspondence to note?
None.
None. Any 686 committee officers update?
No.
687 action points. Anything on the list of action points that you particularly want to bring to our attention this evening?
I think what we're starting to do is just systematically work through things like the policies, allocate them to committees, put a timetable out. So I've started to do that. So that's 467/23. And the only thing that actually we didn't agree with, which was at the last week, was the 609/23, the community engagement on the budget, what we want to put out as a community engagement on that. We need, next month, Breckland Council will be sending out the council tax bills. So it's really going to do something to coincide with that before that or subsequent to that.
If I liaise with the communications officer, I think there's a number of press releases that can come from our budget that we adopted, particularly around the welfare rights stuff that we want to do, around the recruitment of staff and the apprenticeships and stuff like that. So if I write a list, and then if anyone's got any particular ideas or suggestions, feed them in. But you know, there's a lot of good stuff in that budget, and we want to make sure people are aware of it. Yeah, thank you for flagging that. I forgot about that. Although that said, I have seen a lot more press releases in the last week, which is really encouraging. Something's working. 688 community engagement. We just touched upon that, but is there anything from the agenda tonight that people want to issue in a press release? None. Exclusion of press and public. To consider resolving that pursuant to the Public Bodies Emissions Meetings Act 1960, the press and public be excluded for any remaining items of business on the grounds that publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be discussed. The remaining item is a personnel related item, and therefore I'd propose that we exclude press and public, or in our case, turn off the recording. Are members content that we do that?
Yeah.